Welcome back. As more Americans are road tripping around the country, RVshare is seeing an almost 150% increase in bookings for this holiday weekend year over year. We're joined now by RVshare CEO Jon Gray. So, Jon, you saw an 146% increase, but we're seeing Europe reopening to vaccinated tourists. We're seeing half of those Americans now are vaccinated. Do you think you can keep this growth rate up going forward?
I do think we can keep the growth rate going. I think what we've seen last year was people kind of flocked to outdoor travel and RVing because it was a way of traveling that gave them more control over their surroundings during a pandemic. As we move kind of out of a pandemic setting, what we're seeing is people having more flexibility over their time in terms of work, in terms of education, and that's opening new markets to outdoor travel. Also, many of the people who went and traveled in a way that was centered around the outdoors last year had a wonderful experience doing it. Our satisfaction rates, if you look at our reviews, were over 93% last year. And so people who go out and have a great time doing something typically like to do it again. And that's what we're seeing this year. You know, we're about to deliver Memorial Day well ahead of plan and, kind of a huge growth year on year. 4th of July is off to an even better start, and we expect the growth over 4th of July to be even faster.
So, Jon, talk to me about some of the trends you're seeing, in the RV space. Where are people going? Where is most of the activity happening? And is it different than what you saw just a few months ago?
So, yes, I'd say it is different. What we saw last year, mostly last summer, but even into the fall, is we saw people renting an RV and taking it to places that were near their home. They were tired of sitting at home. They wanted to get out and do something. So they were renting an RV, taking it to a state park, spending some time there. The duration of the trips we saw was longer, but the distance traveled was shorter. We're seeing this year, the duration stay pretty long, but the distance traveled get much further. So that's one big thing we've seen. Another thing that we've seen is that our fly-to destinations are kind of coming back online this summer. So last year was a very tough summer for Vegas because most of the people who rent RVs in Vegas fly in and then take an RV. That is now coming back. But Vegas is back to growing and doing so quite quickly, as are some of the other kind of fly-to markets. So those are the big changes we're seeing. I think another change that we've seen is that people, when they travel, are looking for the ability to stay connected, to have good Wi-Fi access, and to blend their trip between work and play. And that's a trend that we believe is reliable coming out of the pandemic.
Curious to know, especially as you're seeing those fly-to destinations, really picking up steam again, if folks are more and more interested perhaps in renting RVs, especially as we see the car rental market really getting squeezed. Cars, even if you can find them, most people can't, because they're sold out, now have to pay really exorbitant sums, $500, $700 a day. Is that making the RV market a little bit more palatable to some folks that perhaps were not interested in RVing before?
I think it definitely makes us a better option from a cost comparison perspective because, typically when you're renting an RV, you're renting your rental car and your place to stay. So you're typically comparing the cost of a rental car and a hotel to that of an RV. And, it certainly makes us better from a cost competition perspective if rental cars are hard to come by. But I would say, too, and it's important to make this delineation, we are very much not in the rental car business. We're in the accommodations business. This is a substitute product for staying in a vacation rental, staying in a hotel, or sleeping in a tent when you go camping, more than it's a substitute for a rental car.
Jon, when you look at the public markets and you see companies similar to yours, Thor Industries, Winnebago, is there any thought there to becoming a publicly traded company in the not too distant future?
I mean, it's, you're, as a CEO of a business, you're always looking to maximize the value that you provide to your shareholders. Public markets are one way of doing that. So, of course, it's something that we consider. I would say, too, though, one important difference between our business and, the Thors and Winnebagos and businesses like that of the world is we don't own the RVs. We just connect people who are looking to go on an RV trip with people who are looking to, or who have an RV and are looking to turn it into a second source of income. So our business is far more akin to, Expedia's Vrbo or Airbnb or a business like that than it is to a traditional RV manufacturer.
So Jon, looking at the RVshare website, perhaps, everyone might see me doing the show from an RV in the very near future, but I see that it's mainly the United States. Now, I know just anecdotally from a lot of my friends that are in Europe, they're very tired of being locked inside their own country. Obviously, Europe, you could travel to another country just like we can travel to another state. Is there a plan, perhaps, especially as, this pandemic is causing so many people to get very interested in road tripping, perhaps folks that were not interested before, to perhaps expand into that European market?
It's certainly something we're considering. I would say the U.S. is the largest global market for RV rentals, and our plan is to become really great at serving the largest market. And then from there, we can scale into other markets, either through acquisition or through geographic expansion when the time comes for that. But, for now, we're a very high growth business in what we believe is a wonderful growing category that's really starting to emerge in mainstream travel. So our focus is entirely in the U.S. today.
All right. CEO of RVshare, Jon Gray, thanks so much for joining us today.